I've played Shadow of Mordor. I've played Shadow of War. I wanted the younger and action-packed Celebrimbor. But man. Season 2 of The Lord of the Rings of Power has finally concluded, so now it's time to talk about everything that is this season. But before I do that, if you haven't seen my full review video of Season 1 of The Rings of Power, you can go and check that out right now. But without further delay, let's get to talking about Season 2 of The Rings of Power. The second season of Amazon Prime's The Lord of the Rings of Power had much better preparation than for Season 1. The marketing team either was replaced or locked in this time around, as the show made itself clear as a spin-off to the story of The Lord of the Rings, rather than just another generic high fantasy series. And once the series started, this conclusion was mostly correct, though there are still some things that I will address that I think the show has to get rid of. If we look at the main weaknesses of the season first, we have a few. The first is the handling of the Stranger and Harfoot storyline. I already had issues with this plotline in Season 1, but in this season, it helped me see what my main issue was. And to explain myself, I'll use the example of Episode 2 of Star Wars, The Attack of the Clones. Now, in this movie, we have the main story of the film, which is the political espionage conspiracy and the escalation of war, led by Obi-Wan Kenobi. But we also have Anakin Skywalker and Padme frolicking in the fields of Naboo because we need to set up their romance. The latter storyline not only is much less interesting and engaging, but it feels forced in. This is unfortunately where the story of the Stranger and the Harfoots finds itself, especially in this season. It is noticeably less interesting and engaging than every other plotline because the other plotlines are moving right along, and this one is moving so slow compared to the others. This is unfortunate since I think Daniel Wayman, Syrian Hines, and Rory Keener did a good job in their roles. The next issue is one that I noticed in Season 1 as well, and that is the problem of scaling. In Season 1, this could be passable because that season is noticeably less big in scale than this season, obviously. But several times I noticed with Season 2 is that there were simply not enough people present, especially for the crowd scenes, making the worlds seem smaller than they should. In the case of the climactic siege of Eregion, the number of defenders wasn't believable for me. In addition, the lack of clear establishing shots made the final fight of the season choppy and awkward. It just seemed like they shot what they needed, but then rushed themselves in the editing room. The next big issue this season was the unnecessary amount of callbacks and quoting of either the Lord of the Rings books or the Lord of the Rings films. What I mean is that in this season there are several times where we have characters quoting lines from other characters from the Lord of the Rings books or the Lord of the Rings films. And not only does it just remind us of how much better those books and films were than this series, but it makes it awkward because many times it's out of context. The only time these callbacks, if you will, made sense to me was the moment between Elendil and Queen Miriel, where we see Narsil for the first time. The show does not need to do this. It doesn't need to do the callbacks. It does not need the films or the books. It can be its own thing. And this is made abundantly clear in how most of the series' plotlines have gotten much better, some more than others. This season decided at the beginning to spend a lot of time across the 3 initial episodes setting up each plotline individually, rather than dropping everything on us at once like at the beginning of Season 1. This allowed for most of the episodes in Season 2 to flow much better, since we weren't jumping back and forth between each story the entire time. The best example of this is the Eregion storyline. The season very wisely shifted its focus away from Galadriel and made Celebrimbor the main protagonist, and his relationship with Annatar, aka Sauron, the main drama. The only problem I have with this story is that there wasn't enough of it because it was really, really good. The focus being on the rings and their forging, as well as Sauron's influence in the process, is what this series should have been from the start, not a dragged-out mystery box. Before I talk about the 2 main characters, I'd like to acknowledge some great secondary ones. Robert Aramayo as Elrond was better this time around, and as they didn't just give him more to work with, but the character is becoming more cold and less cheery. Círdan the Shipwright was a new elf character this season and didn't get a lot of screen time, but they nailed it with the casting and the design. As some of you may recall, the character of Adar was one of my favorite characters and surprises from Season 1. Despite the actor change, Sam Hazeldine kept the character strong, and they ended his story appropriately but tragically. Finally, the 2 Durins deserve some attention. Owain Arthur is once again great as Prince Durin IV, but I think the greater praise goes to actor Peter Mullen as the Dwarven King. In Season 1 and in this season as the Stoic or the Mad King, he did a great job and got just enough of the Balrog to have a cool death scene. It does help when you have good actors to play your main characters, and both Charles Edwards, Lord Celebrimbor, and Charlie Vickers, Sauron, did an incredible job with their characters. I've played Shadow of Mordor. I've played Shadow of War. I wanted the younger and action-packed Celebrimbor. But man, did Charles Edwards bring it with his performance as this character this season. The Dark Lord needed a good actor too, and Charlie Vickers delivered as well. He was already really good. I thought he did a great job with what he had in Season 1, but in this season he really brings out what he wants this character to be. It was great to finally have Sauron as he should be. Smart and deceptive, yes, but also pure evil. Season 2 of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is overall a noticeable improvement. The show knows more of what it wants to do and builds and ends most of its stories well, in addition to setting up the show's future. This is, I believe, how the series should have started, with the focus being on Celebrimbor, the making of the rings, and of course, the Lord of the Rings himself. However, there are still some glaring issues that the series needs to move past if it wants to be something good or great. The Rings of Power Season 2 gets a 6.5 out of 10. Hello everyone, welcome back to Movies with Michael. If you enjoyed this series review, you can show by leaving a like on this video and commenting down below what you thought about this series. Did you love it, did you hate it, or was it right there in between? And please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the notification icon to be notified about my latest videos. That's all for now, and I'll see you all next time.